Yep. Ding, let's go. So, believe it or not, you'll see. But this is actually like one of my core messages that, that comes to surface for me personally every once in a while. But I've been essentially living it so I know what it means to be a bitch and to not be a bitch. So, life is too short to be a bitch. Now, nobody wants to be called out for being a bitch. Nobody, most people wouldn't dare admit that they themselves are bitches, even though that if you admit it, it's like, the 12 steps or the first step to recovery or to true healing is to admit things. So, listen, okay? Because I've been there and I'm still finding myself in those pockets, and I want to see for what it is and then see where I can compost it and grow something from it, right? There's something to be said in the destruction of something, and then, it's burnt down to ashes, and then the phoenix rises from the ashes. That is a thing. It is a symbolic truth that happens in our lives. Sometimes we have to lose a friend group and get a better one. Sometimes we have to deny our families in the short term or in the long term. It just is what it is. Whether it be family, friends, jobs, general life situations. Sometimes you have to just let it go, turn the other way, turn the other cheek, get out of there, and make something better for yourself. And certainly, as I'll be talking about, that's the physical stuff. The metaphysical, the internal, the heart-based stuff is equally true. So you get to this point where you're like, no, I don't want to think this way anymore, which is in line with, I don't want to feel this way anymore. And yes, the internal and the external are linked in that sense, where it's like, yeah, sometimes you got to make a physical move to make a mental, emotional difference and make it happen. Sometimes it's just a matter of, look, just being by yourself, sitting down, eyes open or closed, but stimulus minimum situations. You can be sitting, looking out a window, just jotting down in a journal, notebook, whatever, just making this intention, making it known that you want changes happening, you want them to happen, and look, you're open and receptive to whether or not the message comes from, the heart, the soul, the intuition, the connection to God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, whether it happens through that capacity or just through contemplating, where it's like, look, let me weigh things out, pros and cons, what is actually happening, what can I actually do, and then I can sleep on it, and then have more messages come up the next day, the next days after that, whatever. But progress is being made because you're turned in that direction, and you're treading lightly, and you're like, I want to see what I get, because I want things to change. Things need to be different. I need a clarification. I need an expansion of things that need to be clarified and expanded. Let's go. Let's make it happen. Okay? So, back to the topic at hand, which is life is too short to be a bitch. So, it'll help me describe this concept thinking about someone in my life, semi-prevalent in my life, who is, for all intents and purposes, it's checking many of the boxes of being a bitch. And I can compare this person to myself because, exhibiting similar qualities, and in some respects doing the opposite of what I would have done in those particular situations and things like that, where it's like, so I'm in my 30s It makes me think about me in my 20s, where there were people who were bitches. I was a bitch in many respects, but I need to pinpoint the areas where I was not being a bitch, where I was exploring, chipping away at my bitch acidness, at my shadow, making things happen, like being creative and spontaneous and rebellious when it was necessary. And even in places where it wasn't necessary, I was just experimenting. Okay, how far can I push the boundaries? Children do this too. And, if you're a teacher, educator, working with children, there are flip sides to this coin of like, okay, they're being, insubordinate, they're not listening, they're misbehaving. It's like, okay, yeah, you want order, you want harmony in this situation, but at the same time, you can give a sort of internal tip to the hat, because rebellion, now, this isn't a blanket statement, but this is for the most part what I've seen. For the most part, rebellion, if it's essentially not malicious, if it's just testing, pushing the boundaries, seeing what you can and can't get away with, seeing what you can and can't explore into, around, then in my observation, that deserves a sort of tip of the hat. You don't have to do it, to them, or, verbalize or motion to them consciously, externally, because, you want the order and you want the harmony, but internally, you can give a sort of a tip to the hat, because they're exploring, they're experimenting, they're seeing the boundaries, right? So, now some kids are a-holes just to be a-holes. They see that something evokes a negative response in someone else, and they're doing their little hee-hee-hee-hee, right? Their mischievous ways. But there are other ways where it's like, look, I'm just testing the boundaries. I want to explore. I want to expand. I'm a child. Life is absolutely ridiculous. All this stimulus is daunting, but also amazing. It's really cool. What else can I do? Right? It's like that type of stuff. So, as a result, that's just what they're doing. They're exploring and they're expanding. So, you can do this at any age. And this is sort of one of the, let's just say, handful of antidotes for bitch acidness, is look, there's a time and place for rebellion, exploration, pushing the boundaries, in your, internal and immediate life, and then with friends, with families, and yeah, fine, fair enough, be careful when it comes to workplaces and societal situations, grocery stores, bars, nightclubs, food truck events, concerts, whatever, but festivals, right, where lots of people are drunk or doing drugs or whatever, and the security is kind of laxed, there are places and spaces where exploring, testing the boundaries, being a bit rebellious is exactly what you want to do, and certain places and spaces where they're exactly the right places to test it out. And then, these moment of truth situations, these crossroad situations are as daunting as they are awe-inspiring. These situations are the spices of life, because it's okay, threshold, crossroads, a moment of truth situation. I can feel the butterflies. I can sense a sort of fear, ooh, will I do it? What will happen? And then you get to choose, right? I'm not saying it's better to go forth or better to not go forth. That's really up to you. That's the awesomeness. That's the killing of the bitch acidness when you see fit, right? It's up to you. The moments of truth. You can feel it, right? This life is the hero's journey. That's another antidote to bitch acidness, right? Bitch, and then acidness, right? You want to be more alkaline. If you're a health nut, you get that idea. The bitch acidness. Another antidote for that is the hero's journey. If you don't know that already, search up hero's journey, search up Joseph Campbell, search up Jordan Peterson, search up their books that talk about it, search up Sermon on the Mount, search up... No, that's enough, all right? Like, you'll get it. And if you care, you'll care, right? If you care to get it done, you'll get it done. There you go. There's another antidote right there, where it's like, notice yourself and your lack of action, your lack of resolve, your lack of decision making, where it's like, states of, they're also, forms of crossroads and moments of truth, but these are more sort of more amorphous, more sort of blobby, more sort of wishy-washy. It's the wishy-washiness itself of, it's a lot of like emotions involved, like the indecision, like I don't know about this or that. But the more emotions involved of like the drama, the complaininess about things. So there's another part, I'll probably get back to it, but it's like the indecision, feeling like a victim or feeling like, I don't know about this, like, I don't think I can do this, where we would be in a much better place even if we were in indecision, then call it a definite no. We're wasting time and energy being wishy-washy about it, being a victim about it, externally or internally. Like, we can be like a victim of our own options or our own indecision, our own, standing on the fence, on the tightrope. It's just like, you're on the tightrope. Just be strong, go forth, or be strong and say, like, F this tightrope, and just, hang down and find a place to land and get off the tightrope and do something else. So, this and other things that I've discussed and will discuss, a lot of it relates to a sort of a masculinity, a sort of yang, opposed to the yin. And there's a time and place for both. But if we're talking specifically about life is too short to be a bitch, it goes into this temporal aspect, like life is too short, where it's like, hey, you're losing time and energy by being in these modes of indecision, of not going for things that you feel on a heart and soul core level that you should go for it, or at least try, or at least take steps in that direction. Being a little bit rebellious, being a little bit experimental, explorative, is that a word? Being a bit of an explorer, right? It's like, you're seeing all these like Indiana Joneses around here, these Lara Crofts, exploring the world and just like slaying it, doing some awesome stuff. you know, you may be seeing this on like your scrolls, and you're just like, look at these people. Look at them. You know, and you're just being a bitch. Like, to be honest. And look, again, it's like not to just like name call and not to just like get in people's faces and to be purposefully like inflammatory. Like, I'm doing this from a place of like legitimate like love and care and encouragement, right? Everything that I'm saying to you, I'm saying to myself. Like, physically, literally, symbolically, metaphysically, like, it's happening. Everything that we say, everything that we hear is going in there subconsciously. So, you know, in a selfish sense, I love making videos because I'm giving myself this energy, this pep talk energy, and it's freaking awesome. So, you know, even if I, you know, make claims like, you know, at the end of the day, I'm just making these videos for me. Like, if you like it, cool. If not, like, whatever. As long as you're being less of a bitch and more of a legitimate hero to yourself and to everyone around you, baby steps, like little bits and pieces, like over time, over the days, months, weeks, years, like of a lifespan, right? If you're less of a bitch than you were yesterday, you're winning. Cool. If you're less of a bitch than you were 5 seconds ago, you're winning. You're better. You're more clarified. You're more expanded. It can really be that simple. This sounds woo-woo, but it's true. Follow your heart, your soul, your intuition. It's like a muscle. The more you work it out, the more it works out. The more it works. The more it works for you. Straight up. Whew. All of these things and more. So, I'll end the video with respect, as I like to do. And respect to the word respect, to start out, right? Where it's like to respect, to look again. Because there's much to be said about the process of giving something attention. It doesn't have to be through the eyes. It can be through the senses and through the metaphysical stuff, the thoughts and the feelings, and just attending to that, attending to the proprioceptive area of the heart, of the center of the chest, or the place of the heart. I've talked about that in other videos. Check that out if you're interested in that. But to respect is to look at something, to give awareness to something again, because arguably you've never like put awareness on something for the first time. At some point in your life, awareness, right? So to respect, to give more awareness to something, is to give it more energy, more credence, more of a priority in your life. And if you give more credence and priority to things like your literal, physical, and metaphysical heart and soul and other aspects, you know, your body, your mind, your emotions, your just journey, right? Your life, the more respect you give to it, by design, it's going to get better because you're respecting it, you're giving it more attention, more energy, more of a priority, more of a credence. So therefore, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's an expanding feedback loop. It's a clarification and an expansion on multiple layers, multiple dimensions. It's so freaking awesome. So, respect to you, respect to me, respect to this life, respect to us on this path, and our any and all efforts, givings of awareness to the heart, the soul, to the layers of life, the elements, the fire, the sun, the air, the earth, the food, the water, the shelter, the nourishment, the ether, right? All that metaphysical stuff. Call it what it is. Respect, respect, respect. And the fact that it's all working in symbiosis to the extent that it is working. I don't want to hear you bitching about, oh, this and this and this isn't working. Respect to the things that are working. Respect to the solutions-based consciousness, awareness, and all of that and more. Straight up. Woo! This is Mac 11. Catch you later.